a lot of people don't want to take action.
Right.
They want to wait until they're perfect at something. I just went and did something.
What gave you that confidence?
Came from my mother from a very early age.
Mm-hmm.
She told me over and over and over that I was supposed to do something big in this world that impacted a lot of people. Yeah, you're a real estate investor. You want to make money. But to be successful in this niche, you truly have to divorce your desires for what you want and really think about the other person on the side of the table. And if you provide enough value, the deals will come.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today, we have Michael Franke with Niche and Michael Flynn from Kansas City to talk about how he went from being a school teacher to become a millionaire. And congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Super Bowl victory. That was a big game not too long ago. Guys, I am on a mission to create 100 millionaires. The information on the show alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you'll take consistent action, you will become one. Guys, if you get value today, please hit that subscribe button. That way we can all grow together. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So first of all, this is a long time coming, long overdue. So what was your life like right before you got into real estate?
So I was a teacher before I got into real estate and loved teaching, loved coaching, but the financial side of things was just not going well. I had to work 80 hours a week to make 40 grand a year. My wife wasn't working much, so we were not going forward. We were going backward every month, and I just didn't feel like it was sustainable. So for years, I'd kind of nerded out on HGTV or property, any type of property show.
Mm-hmm.
I would watch it, and I'd be like, I could do that. I want to flip a house. So fortunately, my parents were well off enough that they helped me buy my first house to flip. It was a piece of junk, and we paid way too much for it. But for that entire summer off from teaching, I flipped that house, and I think we made 18 grand or so, and we split it because they funded the project. So it's like, it's not a lot of money, but it was proof of concept that I could do it. And
when was this?
That was 2015.
2015.
Yeah.
Okay. So 9 years ago, man. 2015. I was going to say it's not that long ago, but now looking back, like that's a long time ago.
A long time ago and just yesterday.
Yeah. So teaching math, algebra, right?
Yep. Teaching math to ninth graders.
Was it rewarding and fulfilling?
I actually really enjoyed the teaching aspect and getting around the kids, and I loved the coaching. That was my love. I coached cross country and track, but it was the things that I couldn't control. I wanted to teach deeply and have them really understand a concept, and that's just not how it works in high schools. You're teaching a mile wide and an inch deep. That just wasn't fulfilling for me.
Gotcha. And 80 hours. What's with the 80 hours?
So I obviously have my 40 during teaching, but you have coaching before school, coaching after school.
Oh, so it's the practice.
The practices added up a lot. And then you have meets on the weekends that are 8 or 9 hours. So it added up.
You don't get paid extra for being a coach for the other things?
You get a stipend, but it's kind of a joke.
So not really that big. So 40,000, but look, it was in Kansas City?
Yeah, Kansas City.
And that goes pretty far in Kansas City.
It did, but we just weren't doing well financially. For two people.
Yeah. And like, I admire that you went down that road because like that's something I've said I wanted to do, right? Because I still remember it was 9th grade with my high school physics teacher. Like, what this guy does is awesome because he's passionate about physics. He's passionate about teaching it to us. But I couldn't make the math work.
That's exactly right. I just didn't want to be the man that didn't provide for my family. And we were starting to think about kids, and I'm like, we're going to have a third one and a fourth one in the family. And this just is not going to make sense.
This 40,000 was not just you and your wife.
Yeah, I was just thinking long term. Like when we start having others to feed, this isn't going to work. So started looking for other options.
Okay. So it wasn't a book. It wasn't social media. It was really watching like TV shows on flipping.
Yeah, it was that. And I knew it wasn't going to be as easy as it was on TV, but I had always had that entrepreneurial idea that I wanted to pursue in my head, but I was kind of guided down a path of college and being a teacher, and it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I really felt like I had the ability to make a lot more money and make a lot more impact with others, and I thought I could do that in real estate.
What gave you that confidence?
Actually, it came from my mother from a very early age. She told me over and over and over that I was supposed to do something big in this world that impacted a lot of people. And whether that was true or not, I believed it. So my whole life, that's been kind of ingrained. And We actually recently had a conversation with my mother there, and she was like, "What do you think that the most important thing that I did for you is?" And it's like, "Of course you loved me, you took care of me. I wanted for nothing, but I think it was that belief that you put in me that I can do it, and it won't be easy, but you're going to impact a lot of people."
Yeah. Well, that faith, right? That confidence and belief, I think, in my personal opinion, is probably the single most valuable uh, uh, asset or trait we can bestow upon our kids.
100%.
Yeah. Um, Something I look back and like that was the greatest gift I think my mom gave me.
Oh, cool.
Right.
Cool.
It was, I don't know if it was well founded, right? Because we're talking about singing, but she's like, you can do anything
Yeah.
that you want to do. So talk to me about that first deal. So you're watching TV. I can do this.
hmm
How do we go from I can do this to doing it?
So I was completely green. I knew nothing about real estate other than what I'd seen on TV. I
Mhm.
thought you had to use a real estate agent to get
Mhm.
a deal. And at that point, there was an auction website called Hubzu
Oh,
that
yeah.
I got on. And there was a house that caught my eye, and it didn't really need a ton of work. And I was
Mhm.
like, we could do this. Well, we ended up buying that house for about 80 grand. Knowing what I know now, we probably should have paid more, like 55.
Mhm.
But we got the deal done, and we bought the house in July, right after school was over, and I just started doing all the work myself and committing the cardinal sin of swinging the hammer.
Got it.
So,
Oh, it's not Cardinal Sin. You're just getting started. So
yeah.
Hubzu, if I remember correctly, you had to pay something. Like you were like making your earnest money through credit cards, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was something like that.
Yeah,
It's been a
your
while.
yeah,
But
you register your account, you bid, and you have to submit I think it was like your deposit was non-refundable unless you didn't win the bid or something like that.
right.
So you say cardinal sin. Why is it a cardinal sin?
I invested right before that house into, well, my folks did, into a very, very expensive coaching program that we probably shouldn't have purchased into. But if there's one thing that I learned that from that course, it was not to swing the hammer and to, hire it out and delegate.
Mhm.
I did not do that. But it
Right.
was interesting to learn kind of those trades at a
Mhm.
deeper level. That way, later on when I was facilitating those flips, I kind of understood what to look for.
How much was that course?
A lot more than I'd care to admit, but I think it was something like 70K. It was a lot.
Wow,
It was a lot.
70K. All right, I guess maybe we have to talk about offline who it was.
Yeah, definitely offline.
Okay. And the sad reality is that's not unusual. It's not uncommon, right?
Yep.
To have these programs out here. I'm guessing it was probably one of those like you listened to something on the radio and then you went to like a 2-day event for like $97.
That was exactly it.
And then like, hey, Michael, you need to get some credit cards,
Yep.
right? And then go to the back of the room.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So,
They did a good job. They got us. And as much as it stinks to spend that type of money on a course, it did get me on this path that, like
Right.
you mentioned, has made me millions.
so let's try to at least on this podcast provide more value
Yes.
and our time together than what you got from that $70,000 course. All right. So you say the cardinal sin of swinging hammer. Now, everything we see today, social media, YouTube, whatever, it's like, don't do the work, hire it out, delegate it, work on your business, not in your business.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that's a fallacy,
Okay.
right? Like you have to start off knowing what you're doing because how could you possibly teach, manage, retain? You don't know how to do it. With all that being said, I don't know how to swing a hammer. So you say it's a cardinal sin, knowing what you know now, do you still think it's a sin?
That being said, I was a solopreneur for a long time. So
Yeah.
from 2015 to 2019,
Mhm.
I did it all by myself. I was the acquisition person. I was the one looking at the finances. I was the person that was the TC,
Mhm.
going to the appointments, everything. It was me. So I did learn all of those things.
Mhm.
I think when I said it was a cardinal sin to do it myself, it was more of just the construction part. But
Yeah.
I've seen every part of the business, and I've
Right.
done it all at a high level. So I think there was a ton of value in that.
Yeah.
That way, when I taught my people, I knew what I was talking about, and not just guessing.
Well, not just teaching. I think it's also for like the BS meter, right? Like one thing that I think I've sat in nearly every seat in the company, right? Not to this degree or quality, but I've sat in every
Yeah.
seat in the company, and that really helps me vet vendors, right? When they say I'm going to do this or that, I was like, does that really add up? Is that in alignment with what I know to be true, right? Because if you don't know it to be true, you don't know what is real and what's possible, then you're paying for things without knowing whether it's valid or so on.
Oh, completely agree.
Yeah.
One of my gifts, I would say, is that I'm able to perceive if someone is legit or not,
Mhm.
almost immediately. I don't even have to talk to them. Sometimes I just know. So doing all those things in the company, I do know the verbiage. I do know how things are done.
Mhm.
And if someone isn't, in alignment, I can tell pretty quick.
Right. So, um, you got the deal, Hubzu. You did the work yourself. What were some of the challenges on that particular deal?
Oh man, what didn't go wrong? I'm out there at the property. I remember it clearly. It was when I first got exposed to YouTube. I am putting up a backsplash in the kitchen. I do not know how to do this, and I'm trying to cut a little angle for the light switch cover. And I just remember looking at the YouTube video and throwing up my hands and giving up and going home that day. But it was just a lot of lessons, and I realized, hey, it's not necessarily easy to get into this business, but I know it's going to be productive.
Mhm.
So I learned all those skills, and it probably took 3+ months of me grinding away.
Mhm.
And I was out at that house a lot.
Yeah.
But it was super rewarding when I finished. It was like, I did this. I did
Mhm.
it with my hands. We sold it for a little bit over list. When we put it on the market, I actually listed it myself because I had my license at that point. And it was
Literally.
it was really cool to see, hey, I didn't know how to do this. I bought a house. I renovated it. Someone else saw value in it. We made 19 grand.
Mhm.
Let's do it again.
Well, and that's the best part is that you were able to still come out on top.
Yeah.
Sure, you traded a little bit of sweat equity. It's fine, right? When we're starting, but it could have been worse. You could have done all that work and lost money.
It's very true.
All right. So, all right. So let's do it all over again. Did you go back to school after that summer?
I did not.
Okay, so that was enough to say I'm not coming back.
Well, and there were times that I thought I might have to, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I was able to cash in on that 3 years of retirement to kind of give us some operating expenses. I believe it was somewhere around 20 grand.
Mhm.
Well, that left us, 3, 4, 5 months of operating expenses at that time in my life.
Operating expenses or living expenses?
Living expenses.
Okay.
Living expenses. And that money started getting really, really tight.
hmm
And it got to the point where I got to this deal that I was working on. We had kind of broken even on several deals in a row. So I was fortunate on that first one.
Right.
But the ones after that, my realtor that I was working with,
Mhm.
they said that the ARV was a little bit higher than it was. The repairs were probably a little bit less than they should have been. And we ended up breaking even. She was the only one that made money on those deals. And there was a point where we were about to close on a deal. It was going to make us 20 grand. I was down to no money left in my account. And it was supposed to close the next day. I got on a call from an appraiser. He said, I got some bad news for you. This house, it's going to appraise 20,000 less than what you have it under contract for. Almost exactly what the profit was.
hmm
And I remember just being completely broken. And I'm actually getting a little bit emotional thinking about it. And I was finishing up some of the repair requests for that house because I was still doing the work.
hmm
And I just broke down. I went and sat on the side of the house and just wept. Like it was ugly crying because it's like I didn't know what I was going to do
hmm
to provide. We didn't have the money for the next month of our mortgage or anything like that. So I just had to finally, I just had this resolve after sitting there for 60 minutes. I probably thought something like what we had talked about earlier with my mom. It's like, you're capable of doing this.
hmm
You can do it. And I would say that situation, kind of a new man came out of that.
Yeah.
And I just decided I was going to be the man that provided for my family. And I started doing that.
What were those thoughts? You talking about like, what am I going to do and this and that? I mean, what? Because I think a lot of people that are listening, whether today or in the past or will in the future, run into those thoughts.
The thing when I was sitting there was that I wasn't enough, that I was a failure, that I was going to have to go back to a job that I hated. And I was just playing through those over and over in my mind.
hmm
And I realized that I didn't believe those things, that, I could go down that path and believe those thoughts, but I'd been raised well enough that I was resilient enough to fight back on those thoughts a little bit. But for me, it took being backed into a literal corner to kind of emerge as a new person and start taking action that I needed to take to be successful.
So I'm thinking back to the hero's journey, right?
Mhm.
Like, the best instance I can think of right now is like every Marvel movie where like all the superheroes are defeated and they got that sad song and all hope is lost.
Yes.
And then something happens. You get back on the horse, you come with a new plan. So what's the new plan?
So I was just a man possessed at that point. I had to make money. I knew in the back of my mind that my parents would bail me out, but I didn't want that. I
Right.
wanted to solve it on my own. So I was at that point, I didn't know anything about what I do now, but I was just out driving for dollars. I saw a for sale by owner.
Mm-hmm.
I called that for sale by owner, and it happens to be in the same neighborhood in which I currently live, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I called and I said, "Hey, what are you looking to get for this house?" They said a number that was absurdly low. I was like, "Surely there's a mistake."
Mm-hmm.
So I called them up, went over and met, signed the contract on the spot, which I'd never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of cool. And that was one of the easiest rehabs we ever did. We listed it. We ended up making 60 grand on the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I went from having a few $100s in my account to all of a sudden 60. And it was just like, wow,
Yeah.
I can do it. We're okay.
That one where the appraisal came in 20K low, it stayed there. You guys weren't able to challenge it.
No,
Buyer wasn't going to come up, pay the difference.
no.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So it was the next one.
It was the next one.
The next one. Okay. So then after that,
So really, I kind of kept going in the same path. I started delegating things out more. We got some contractor relationships, but it was largely kind of the marketing style that you would expect from a newbie. You're out there doing bandit signs, you're doing drive for dollars, you're putting offers in on the MLS. That's all I knew. And this went on for a few more years. And at that point, I was like, I'm doing okay, but we're kind of stagnant.
Mhm.
I'm missing something. And I remember it clear as day. This was 2018. I was in another one of those periods where we were okay financially at that point, but I didn't have any leads. I didn't have any deals. And I was sitting on my back deck, kind of pouting about it. My wife at that point was no longer working. She was able
Mhm.
to retire, and she came out and was like, "Why are you here? Go do something. Go make something happen."
Mhm.
So she kind of kicked me in the butt a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I need to look for another opportunity. So it's kind of that next moment of being backed into the corner again.
Mhm.
And I was scrolling through Zillow and I saw a little red dot on Zillow and it said pre-foreclosure on it.
Mhm.
And I was like, huh, I don't know what this is, but I saw that that house was about a half mile from my home.
Right.
So I walked over there. Um, I was scared out of my mind. I'd never door knocked a house before. I thought they were going to chew me out or yell me off the property.
Mhm.
But I knocked on the house, and all that I could think to say was, "Hey, my name's Michael. I noticed you had an auction next week. I just wanted to come by. I'm in your neighborhood. I just want to see if I could help."
Mhm.
And I didn't think anything was going to happen, but they poured out their soul to me. They explained their whole situation. I went into their living room. We sat there for probably 90 minutes and talked it out. And the point of this is, a lot of people don't want to take action.
Right.
They want to wait until they're perfect at something. I just went and did something, and I only knew a little bit more than they did, probably. But to them, I seemed like an expert. And then they said they were going to think about it at the end of the conversation. I was like, no, this isn't going to happen.
Mhm.
But the next morning, they called me. I went over there and signed a contract. I signed that thing for $50,000. I was like, wow, I generated a lead out of nowhere.
Mhm.
They were extremely motivated. There was no one else that I was competing against. What did I just do?
Right.
And that was kind of the origin of the pre-foreclosure thing that we do now.
Gotcha. Before we continue this thread, you were lost, and then you get the $60,000 deal.
Mhm.
At this point, then, do we have full conviction like this is it, or like there's no more doubts, or?
At that point, I'd opened Pandora's box,
Mhm.
and I was like, I made $60,000 on this deal. I know that I can at least find one more deal a year that I could make 40 grand, like my old teacher salary. So there was no going back at that
Yeah.
point.
So as long as we can beat the old teacher salary,
Yeah.
we're good.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So door knock, get a signed contract. That one, you said it's 2018.
hmm
Wholesale, or are you still flipping?
We wholesaled that one.
Okay. So when did you start wholesale?
I think my first wholesale was back in, I want to say it was 2016, 17. I can't remember the exact year.
Mm-hmm.
You know Nathan Brooks?
Of course.
Okay. So this house I also found on Hubzu. It was in a lake community,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I bought the house for $92,000. I knew it was a deal, but it was just kind of this weird third tier house.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to comp it. I didn't have the confidence to flip that house.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know anything about wholesaling at that point. I didn't even know it was a possibility. So we bought the house. I put it on Craigslist and I put it out there for 145. I thought it was ridiculous. And I was
92
like,
to 145.
92 to 145. I was like,
Nice.
there's no way anyone is going to buy this. This is absurd. So we put it on there the next day. Nathan Brooks, I did not know him at this point. He reached out and he was like, hey, I'm looking for a cheap vacation home. And he was like, if I give you 145 cash, can we do this? So I was like, okay. And then I went ahead and talked to my title company. I was like, I have this under contract and this guy wants to buy it. What do I do? I have no idea.
Yeah.
So they told me, oh, you can assign it. So they helped me through the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time, I'm just wondering, is this going to close? Is this real life? This seems a little too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
The day of closing, I'm like, do I need to come in and close? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Nope, you're just going to get your check. And surely enough, there it was, about 45 grand when all was said and done.
Mm-hmm.
And that opened my eyes again.
Yeah. Nathan, incredible human being. He was here when we moved podcast studio from that control room
Yes.
to in here. So he was the first guest we had on the new set, the set before this set. Okay, so from there, is it just easy cruising? No. So what are some of the other biggest challenges from 2018 where you figured out with pre-foreclosures?
I mean, at that point, I started encountering new mental hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I could do real estate. I knew I could do deals. But at that point, I wanted to build a team. I had started watching podcasts. I don't remember when yours launched. 18. So I remember watching that from almost the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually talking with Austin, my videographer, before we came over here, that I was reflecting on that. The first time I saw your podcast, I was like, I'm going to be on that. And I'm not going to ask to be on it. I'm just going to wait until I do something cool enough to where they reach out. Yeah. So just reflecting on that journey. Mm-hmm. What was your question again? I apologize.
Was it easy after that?
No, it definitely wasn't easy. And like I said, I had new hurdles mentally. Knew I could do deals, but I wanted to start building a team. And I did not have that belief that I could be a leader or that I could hire someone or that I could sustain them and their family. So those were the things that I was fighting for several years. I wanted to hire someone in 2018. I didn't until really early 2020 was my first hire.
Really?
Yeah.
So you started in 15. You didn't make a hire in 2020.
No, I was the definition of a solopreneur.
Yeah.
And we were doing really, really well financially at that point, but I was burnt out. I was burning the candle at both ends. I was doing everything, and I just knew that wasn't sustainable. My daughter had just been born, January 2020. My wife kind of laid down that gauntlet, like, yeah, you need to be around a little bit more.
Yeah, I remember that gauntlet as well. After our first was born, I think like 3 months old. She's like, "So is this like always gonna be like this?" Like, what do you mean?
Right. I think that gauntlet got thrown. She had forced me to stay home for the first week after my daughter Piper was born, and then I was like, "Well, I'm going back to work." And she's like, "Hold on, now, I still need some help." So. At that point, she was like, you really need to hire someone. You can afford it. You can do it.
Yeah.
We started pursuing that.
Tell me about that first hire.
First hire I ever had was an acquisition guy. His name was Jared. He had actually moved in from Las Vegas into the Kansas City market. And I got lucky on my first acquisition hire. I didn't do any type of real interviewing, no cog test, no personality test. I didn't know about any of this. We just met at a breakfast spot and we just hit it off. And he killed it for me for 6-8 months, brought us a lot of revenue. And that was during the period of time where the hedge funds were going crazy and you could buy a house at not much of a discount. They'd buy it above market value. And we did really well. But then he got an offer from another investor that came into Kansas City to own a company at what was it, 50% of the company. Wow. And I was like, I can't compete with that. And we parted ways, and we still do deals all the time together. So there's no bad blood at all.
Is the other company still in business?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think hiring a salesperson, the first one, it's not the hardest part. I think that's the one that's the easiest to not screw up,
Hmm.
right? Because we generally hire people like us,
Yeah.
and we don't give them any systems and processes. And we
None.
say, go figure it out. I think a salesperson can get away with that with the first one, maybe even the second one. It's
This,
after that,
yeah.
we need processes and procedures.
So the big problem that we had from that next hire, I was doing acquisitions, he was doing acquisitions. All of a sudden, we had an avalanche of deals. I could not keep up with talking to the sellers and talking to the title company. So we hired a transaction coordinator at
Mhm.
that time. She has been a godsend for several years for me. Probably the best hire that I've ever made. She's taken so much off my plate,
Yeah,
so I can focus on other things.
right. So when did it become challenging? So the first hurdle was like, should I hire?
Hmm.
But you did it, and it worked out seamlessly, it appears.
It worked out well in terms of the financials,
Mhm.
but it was a disaster in terms of the company. We had no systems, we had no processes. We were just gunslinging, and at
Mhm.
that point in time in the market, it was you could get away with a lot more than you could in a different type of market. So
Yeah.
after that, he left. He was like, "Michael, I love you, but I've got to go do this opportunity. You really need to work on making this a real business. We are a very expensive hobby in terms of we go out there, we make a lot of money,
Mhm.
but we're just gunslinging. This
Mhm.
isn't a real business. If you want A players like me,
Mhm.
you're probably going to need to develop those things." So that was a real gut punch.
Mhm.
It was emotional. We were really good friends, but it was the what I needed to really take the next step in terms of making a real viable
Yeah.
business.
That was the person that liked you that gave you that feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine what it would be if he didn't like you.
Yeah. That would have been tough.
So what'd you do with that?
We immediately started doing things a little bit differently. I started keeping track of KPIs. I started documenting things.
Mhm.
Made videos for every aspect of the business. Knew I wanted to hire TC. We did that, and I documented that. And she actually was better at it than me,
Mhm.
which is what you want in an employee.
Mhm.
And I started working with my employees to start documenting those things thoroughly. And we just got 1% better a day. It's
Yeah.
always been my motto. It wasn't overnight.
Mhm.
It was just a little incremental thing every day.
Um, so they were documenting or you were documenting?
I was doing it too
Mhm.
because I had done that process myself
Mhm.
during my solopreneur. So I had an idea on how I wanted things to be done.
Mhm.
And I would give that off to them, and they would say, "Well, I'd like to fix this, this, and this. I think that would streamline things a little bit better." So
Mhm.
it was a collaborative effort.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I think probably if you're listening to the show, you're probably one of our personality profiles. What are you?
I think I'm a maverick. It's been a few years since I've
Maverick.
taken it.
The Maverick, individualist. You could be a captain, you could be a manager. If you're watching the show, you're probably one of the 4 high A personality types, right? Not the documentation type profile.
No.
And so we all struggle with this. I can say for sure I still struggle with this. Fortunately, I have a team that
Yes.
just does it. How did you um what did you have to tell yourself to get yourself to document? Because most people still don't love to document.
I almost had to set time aside each
Mhm.
week to force it out, and I actually dreaded it and hated it. But I committed to a couple hours
Mhm.
each week of I'm going to make a video on this topic. We're going to document. We're going to put it. We were using Trainual, I
Mhm.
think, at the time, and I just had to force it out of myself. It wasn't
Mhm.
something I enjoyed, but I knew from that advice I had gotten from that acquisition person
Mhm.
that I had to have these things and these systems and these processes to keep A players, and that drove me each week when I didn't want to do it.
Gotcha. Um, so we just came back from Collective Genius,
Yes.
right? And Jason Medley said something from the main stage that really resonated with me. It was, if you want to get rich, focus on how to be lazy.
Mm.
And if you want to become wealthy, focus on how to become incompetent, right? And that first one was my favorite bit of advice from my very first coach. So back in 2011, I hired Craig Proctor Coaching to help me with my business. And it was ironic that the week I was like, I'm done. I got everything I need. I'm out of here. See you guys later. On that call, they're like, yeah, you should spend as much time as possible figuring out how to be lazy,
Yes.
right? But then this new one, about how to be incompetent, documenting, right? We just had Cameron Harold speaking, and he talks about how you need to do less and how, and I promise there's a point of this story, is instead of me documenting it, I'm just going to give you my task, and then we're going to do it together, and we're going to record it, right? And then now you're going to have the ability to do the task.
Right.
But what I've always done or tried to do was document it or record it and this and that and hand it over, which is a functional thing. It works. Just knowing myself, getting myself to do it doesn't work. If I say, Michael, I need you to do this task. Now you're going to get that task done and you're going to schedule time with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to record this conversation. And now it's not the best documentation, but it's some sort of documentation. So, I mean, that, like I said, I just picked that up right now. What are your thoughts on that?
So in the last few hires that we've made, we've gotten to where our company kind of has some presence to it. I've started having access to employees that perhaps I didn't before.
Mm-hmm.
And our business is robust enough to where they believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
But we've really gone through the hiring process religiously now.
Mm-hmm.
So you do the COG test, you do the personality test. If that is good, do a Zoom interview. Then we have 2 in-person interviews and a skills test.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, I hired a CFO. A while back, my father was doing all of the finances, and he kind of wanted to step back. The business had become a little bit more than what he agreed to.
It wasn't a hobby anymore.
It wasn't his thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So we hired Kevin, who was our CFO.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant, way smarter than me.
Mm-hmm.
He immediately came in, looked at our finances, completely changed everything and how we operate. I don't have to worry about finances. I don't have to worry about any of that type of stuff. And he just brings me ideas because he's an A player. He brings me ideas. He's like, I think this would really help us improve. What do you think on that?
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, I like it 90% of the way, adjust it here,
Mm-hmm.
and then he'll go do that. So those are the types of employees I'm looking for now.
Yeah.
Those real A player type personalities.
How are you attracting A players?
We're just really consistent with our hiring,
Mm-hmm.
and we still want to get more consistent. For the longest time, we'd go through a hiring process. I'd find someone really good. I'd think that they were going to choose us. Then they would go another direction. Then you'd be kind of crushed.
Mm-hmm.
Then it'd be a few months of not doing any hiring at all.
Right.
Well, we've really gotten better about making sure all of our ads are out there. We're constantly looking for talent. And I've realized over the years, it's great to have a pipeline of deals, but I almost equally need to have a pipeline of talent.
Mm-hmm.
So we've kind of adopted that mindset in our company that we're just constantly trying to upgrade our team.
You guys have KPIs on recruiting?
We don't. We're just out there constantly taking action. I could probably be better in that department.
Yeah, something we just added literally in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to chat about that because I wouldn't have the first idea on what to.
I mean, we just have how many quality applicants, not applicants.
Right.
How many quality applicants do we have? How many interviews do we have? How many offers do we extend? Just like buying houses.
Mm-hmm.
And then how many did we onboard? It's the same thing. And then the last thing, this is the post metric, not the leading indicator, but the lagging indicator, is how many performing reps did we get that month?
Okay.
Right. So you have to look at that later on. But our goal right now is 2 performing salespeople per month. How are you recruiting? I know you're saying you're more diligent. Are you? And I'm going to get to this later on about social media. Are you leveraging social media? Are you paying a third-party recruiter? What are you doing to get people
So
in?
it's a combination of everything. We've put ads on the normal job websites.
Mhm.
We also have a third-party recruiter that is constantly looking for us. I'm actually considering bringing someone in-house. We're
Mhm.
going to be hiring quite a few people in the next 12 to 18 months, so it might financially make sense.
Yeah.
But it's just a combination of things. And I've actually found a few people through social media. Occasionally, I'll just say, I have this need. If you're interested, shoot me a message. And I've had some good conversations. I don't think I've hired anyone that way,
Yeah.
but at least gets the ball rolling.
Some of the best people we've hired have come from social media.
Yeah.
It's too small of a pool to build an entire organization.
100%.
But yeah, I actually went to a recruiter and I said, I need you to hire a recruiter for me.
Yeah.
At which she turned around and pitched me, and she was like, how about we just be your recruiting company? You just pay us. That works.
Yep.
Right. As long as what you're demanding is not more than what I would pay for an in-house recruiter, let's do it. So that's what we're doing right now.
Love it.
So we're going to talk about the pre-foreclosure king, but before we do that, because we were just touching on social media, you have Austin here,
I do.
right? From Kansas City.
He is.
Now, I have noticed you have some really good content. The ones that make it up in my feed are either your thoughts on the industry or the ones I find really fascinating, you door knocking.
Yes.
Talk to me about how, like, what's involved in creating content around door knocking, and then why it's important. So let's start about what's involved in doing it.
So I started doing that type of content because I was teaching niche list type marketing for a long time, but people wanted more in depth.
Mhm.
They wanted to see it in real life. They wanted to know what the conversations looked like, sounded like. I was like, okay, we're going to try.
Mhm.
So the first time it was really awkward. I had a mic. I think I wore a black sweatshirt like
Mhm.
this and had a mic tucked away. And Austin's sitting in the passenger seat, just kind of like slinked back, trying to not let the seller see.
It's like a really bad like cop stalking
It,
video
it really is.
or stakeout video. Yeah.
And he would just zoom in and we'd go out and door knock and have these conversations. And we found that content did really well. I don't know if it's a curiosity factor or a drama thing, but those
It's a
definitely do
voyeuristic
pretty well,
thing.
I guess.
Okay, so that's what you're doing. Well, what has come from that?
A lot of people it's amazing like I get a lot of appreciation from helping these sellers and getting these deals to the finish line. But I've put this content out there and people that I've never met, like I listened to your word track, your conversation path. I listened how you actually were empathetic to the sellers.
Mhm.
I was able to quit my W-2 because of just the videos on your YouTube channel.
Wow,
Um,
that's a testament.
and it just blows my mind. I get those every few days, and it's just like gets the heart going
Mhm.
every day, and it
Yeah.
goes back to that impact that I want to make.
Mhm.
And I know you have a similar impact that you want to
Absolutely.
make with all the millionaires you want to produce, and
Mhm.
it's just something I'm really passionate about, changing people's lives. So
Do you think in any way you have a competitive advantage in that you were a school teacher?
I think there is an advantage. When I was a school teacher, I was an easy target for those students. What the school district I was in was a little rough.
Mhm.
The parents there were not involved in their kids' lives. These kids, they had rough upbringings, a lot
Mhm.
of really ugly things that they went through, and I was that easy target. So there was a lot of situations that I had to resolve and talk people through and go through their emotions and be like, look, I am not your enemy. I am your teammate. Feel free to unload on me, but I just want to help you learn. I want to help you graduate high school,
Mhm.
go to your next step. So I think there was a lot of empathy that came into place through teaching. I learned a lot, and it's similar type conversations with these sellers. They're going through the worst time in their life.
Mhm.
They're going through a death of a loved one, tragic illness, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And I've seen those situations and teaching in some regard. And I'm able to have that conversation from learning that
Yeah.
from the teaching ranks.
And the reason I was asking this is even though teachers generally tend to be more of the stable, supportive personality profiles, I can say not on the house buying side, but definitely on the realtor side, the people we like to hire to bring into the industry were either bartenders, servers, or school teachers.
Interesting.
Those three profiles, those three industries tend to lead really well because you talk to people all day, every day.
Hmm.
Um, but on the teacher side, what was great is that you cared. So you had a lot of reps talking to people and you care.
Yes.
So if you're likable and you can demonstrate that you care, that is someone you generally want to have represent your best interests.
Yeah. And that's what I try to get across to my team.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, you're a real estate investor. You want to make money. But to be successful in this niche, you truly have to divorce your desires for what you want
Mhm.
and really think about the other person on the side of the table.
Mhm.
And if you provide enough value, the deals will come.
Right.
And we can go down that path a little bit more later, I'm sure.
Oh, no, let's talk about it now.
But I mean, these sellers are being bombarded
Mhm.
in pre-foreclosure. It's not like I'm the only one going after them, but all those other people, they're only can think about themselves as an investor giving that lowball cash offer.
Mhm.
I think of myself as a trusted advisor. I come in there not trying to buy the house right away. I'm trying to diagnose the situation. So we will go through a conversation of every option that they have. some examples might be, can you reinstate the house? Okay, that would be the ideal solution for you.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about how much you're behind. They'll say, I'm 10 grand behind. Okay, you're not just moving on to the next option. Do you have someone in your life that could lend you that type of money? Do you have a 401k that you can tap into? What can you do to get that type of
Mhm.
money? Hey, I've talked to my family. They said no. I've talked to
Mhm.
my work. It's not a possibility. Okay,
Right.
so you kind of get them to admit that they were disqualifying themselves from
Mhm.
that option, and then you go to the next option.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a sales path, just like you're going through. I like to think of it as Inception. You
Mhm.
seen the movie
Yeah.
where you're trying to plan an idea in someone's head.
Mhm.
Same thing with this. So
Right.
then you go on to the second option. Hey, have you pursued a loan modification?
Mhm.
Yeah, I got paperwork from my bank. I applied, but I got fired from my job. I don't have a job. I can't get approved for a loan modification. So you don't think that loan modification is a good path for you? No, I don't think so.
Mhm.
A third option for you, Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Let it be known I hate this option. I do not want you to go down that path. But in a Hail Mary situation, you're the night before the sale, you can file that document and buy yourself some time.
Mhm.
Okay. Fourth option, we'll just kind of glaze over it. It is an option. I could buy the house for cash, put as much equity in your pocket as possible, but we don't even need to talk about that yet.
Mhm.
Fifth option, subject to. What is subject to? Subject to is just a fancy way of saying that I could bring this loan current. I would take ownership of the house, but the loan would stay in your name.
Mhm.
And potentially, if we decided that it was mutually beneficial, you could stay in the house, which is not advisable for a new person.
Mhm.
I'm pretty, I like risk.
Mhm.
And I buy these houses deep enough to where I can accommodate for issues down the
Mhm.
line. Um, but those are kind of the five options that we walk them through. And it just builds so much trust
Right.
from them because you're not just coming out and say, I'm trying to buy your house for a deeply discounted amount. You're really trying to serve that person.
Mhm.
And if they go down one of those paths, such as the reinstatement, the loan modification, the bankruptcy, you're probably not buying that house on that particular round of it being in pre-foreclosure. But you have to be supportive
Mhm.
of them saving their home. I
Right.
don't- So
Well, and there's a couple different things here, and this might sound, crass, but what we have found is even if they do pick option one or option two,
yeah,
in 6 to 12 months, they're gonna be in this situation again,
they will.
right? The decisions they made before are probably gonna be the same decisions again, and this is true in your life and my life. I make the same bad decisions over and over again. They just show up a little bit differently,
Sure.
right? But it's the same ones. Like when you look back, it's like, why did I do that again? Um, that's the first thing. Second thing, you're disqualifying, right? You're not saying you should do this, this, and this. Like, how about
No,
this? How about that? How about that? And they're telling you no.
I want it to be their idea in their
Mm.
head.
And so it's not egocentric. It's not about Michael.
No, not at all.
It's about them. And that's something that we talk a lot about in our sales process is that so many people try to be the hero in the story. Let me do this. Here's how I can help you. Here's this and that. And it works. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but if we talk about you, have you do this? Can you do this? Have you tried this? What if you do this? And they discover the solution. They tell you what's the ideal outcome for them. They're selling themselves on you.
Oh,
You're not
100%.
selling you.
And the cool thing is that I was not behind on payments a long time ago, 2014, 15,
Mhm.
but I know that stress of what's going to happen if I
Mhm.
don't have the money. And I'm able to leverage I've felt this. And I would have loved to have someone like me that came beside me,
Mhm.
laid out all the options. And I let them know I'm an investor. I want to buy this house, but it's not my first priority.
Mhm.
First priority is to help you save your home. And if these options do not work, we can go down this path and I
Mhm.
can help you out there.
Right.
So
One thing I get from time to time is, well, Michael, how about you just loan me the money and then I get my house current?
yeah, I get that question all the time.
Mhm.
And my response is, look, I would love to do that, but my finance guy would absolutely kill me. I can't give you an unsecured loan. And they
Mhm.
kind of laugh and that
Mhm.
conversation's over. But we don't pursue that at all.
It's always striking to me. It's like, so you're in this situation, you want me to lend you
Yes.
money. Okay, so the last thing before we go into the pre-foreclosures. Why is this important? Like, so you're obviously committed to creating content, right? Again, Austin is here. Why is this important?
I never set out to make a community around this.
Mhm,
It was more of a passion thing. I went through it. I found this opportunity to find deals.
mhm,
It was funding my lifestyle, and I helped these sellers. It was very rewarding to me. But then I just started documenting it with no real intention.
mhm,
I just kind of wanted to document my life. And I started getting these messages. How can I learn more? I want to know about this
mhm,
stuff. Can you teach me how to do it? And this happened for long enough that I
mhm,
just started making better content. And I was like, hey, I make enough in this other company. Let's just start documenting
mhm,
this. So I hired Austin about a year ago now,
mhm.
and we've been building things up and figuring it out, and gotten a lot of really good feedback from it.
Awesome. And I met you at Pace's house.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly the year. Do you?
I want to say that was one of his first masterminds that he
Mhm.
did for Sub Two.
Yeah. So you're in sub two, and you went to the mastermind. There were a lot of people there.
There were
People jumping off the
Yeah, off
sides
the deck. Yeah.
into the pool. So how has sub two been a part of your story?
Well, it's one of my five options.
Hmm.
I've become a millionaire just off of Sub Twos.
Hmm.
So I owe so much to you, and I owe so much to Pace for opening my eyes to being able to buy a house with creatively.
Hmm.
So that just blew my mind that I was able to do that type of transaction relatively easily, and I was just a bolt on to what I was already doing,
Hmm.
and it just helped me help more sellers.
Yeah.
But after I'd done a few of those, I was like, I have to meet this guy. So I came down to Phoenix, and it was a kind of out of body experience meeting you and Pace. And I've come a long way in the last few years, but I owe a
Yeah.
lot to you guys.
Yeah. Well, appreciate that. And then before again we continue, how does someone get to see your content on your door knocking?
Yeah, check me out on Instagram, Michael_Frankie. And I do some extended door knocking stuff on YouTube. You can check me out there, Michael D. Frankie.
There you go. And then somewhere along the way as well, my good friend Gary Harper, got to work with him as well.
Yes.
What did we had Amanda Dean on the show? I want to say about months ago now. So, what did they do for you that you couldn't do for yourself?
So they helped us implement EOS
Hmm.
back in 2020. We went through their process. That I think it was a 2 or 3 day
Hmm.
at that point where they came in, helped us implement that. We actually weren't ready for it at that point, and I've actually considered hiring him back again because
Hmm.
we're actually now at the point where his knowledge could be extremely valuable for us because we could actually implement it. At that point, it was like, this is a great idea, but we do not have the ability to implement. So I actually need to give him a call and,
Yeah,
and get him back out.
yeah, they're great people. They've I talked to Gary when things are rough. So you made a huge splash 6 to 9 months ago, maybe 12 months ago. I'm not entirely sure. But I didn't get a chance to watch the presentation at that time. But I had Jimmy Vreeland talk about your presentation. Jimmy Vreeland's a big deal.
Yeah.
I had Ren Bartlett talk about your presentation, right? Because Ren and I do our sales leadership thing together. And there were other people. They're like this kid Michael. He talks about pre-foreclosures. It's crazy, right? What was it that you were talking?
So it's interesting. I did a few presentations at CG Select. I was
Mhm,
in that level at that time. And I was like, well, what's my best stuff?
mhm,
My best stuff is pre-foreclosures. I thought it would be common sense. I was actually kind of concerned when I came in there that it was going to be something that people were going to be twiddling their
mhm,
thumbs and not interested in. But I presented on that whole topic in a smaller setting,
mhm,
and people just went bazook
mhm,
over it. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize this
mhm,
was a need. I ended up winning the belt at that presentation.
mhm,
Didn't think much about it. And then a few months later, Leon was like, we'd really like you to speak on the main stage this time
mhm,
for 60 minutes. I've never done anything like that. So it was a little bit intimidating, but I just put all my stuff forward, presented it,
mhm,
and taught people that, of course, you can get stuff on market. That's great. You can get deals, no doubt. You can go direct to seller. It's great. We all do it. I do
mhm,
it in my own company, but there's another level direct to motivation.
Mhm.
So I taught that at a high level and just kind of gave them a cursory glance of how to get that set up in their
Mhm.
business. And I probably get messages on Instagram every few days just from new people that are coming into CG and they see that presentation. They're like, oh my gosh, I have to put this into place right away.
Mhm.
Please help me. So it's been a fun ride and I'm glad it's been useful for people.
So let's break it down. What was the presentation about?
So in that presentation, I gave a background, kind of like what we've talked about,
Mhm.
my trajectory during that whole time. And then I just started talking about the different ways I marketed to these people. So of course, you've got to get the data first. The
Mhm.
data is the kingpin. If you don't have accurate data,
Mhm.
then you're not going to win. So years ago, I hired a virtual assistant. Their only job, keep track of the pre-foreclosure data, make sure it's accurate
Mhm.
and it's not just notices that are really old. We want it to be as accurate as possible.
Mhm.
We put that into our CRM and then we start marketing. And most people think of marketing as, cold calling or texting, maybe door knocking. And that's kind of it. Okay, but we did it in every aspect that we could think of. So currently we have SMS, we have cold calling, we have door knocking, we have email, we have Facebook messages, which
Mhm.
is, whew, it's good stuff.
Mhm.
And then we have video messages as well.
Mhm.
So I just presented on all those different types of marketing channels and different ways to how those messages looked, how those conversations went, different stories from every single source of marketing and
Mhm.
how I'd gotten a deal from that. That way they could get proof of concept that it actually worked.
Mhm.
I just worked them through that. And we talked a little bit about those 5 options that we kind of talked about, a little
Right.
bit about the sales path.
Mhm.
And that was pretty much the whole thing. But it's a business plan to where you can get a deal or two a week and all of a sudden you have $1 million business just from a bolt on.
Mhm.
You have so many people that are good at PPC, direct mail, pay per lead, TV, all these things. But it's like, wow, I could just bolt this on and,
Mhm.
and have an additional revenue stream. And it just seemed like a no brainer to people that were listening to it, I
Right.
guess.
Um, so you were talking about Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And I got a chance to see it yesterday when you were presenting on it.
Yeah.
What is the general what are the range of reactions you get to messaging someone on Facebook that's in foreclosure?
It's one of the biggest questions I get in any marketing channel we do. Are they going to get mad? Are they going to cuss you out? What's going to happen?
Mhm.
And it does happen from time to time, but most of the time, people are appreciative if you come at it at the right angle.
Mhm.
If you come at it at an angle to where you're there to serve, they can feel that. It has to be genuine, it can't be fake.
Mhm.
And if you come from that angle, they're generally kind of more of a solemn response. It's like they kind of explain their situation.
Mhm.
But in terms of Facebook, really, it's a pretty good response.
Yeah.
The one I talked about in that presentation
Mhm.
was one of my favorite Facebook messages that I got a deal from. I had gone back after I got that deal and figured out how many times my team had contacted them through all mediums. 116 times through all SMS, cold calling, direct mail, all these different things added up over a few months' time.
Mhm.
And I could not get a hold of this woman. It was like this house was in my hometown. It was vacant. There was obscene amounts of equity. And I was like, I want this woman to get a large amount of this equity. Why will she not answer?
Mhm.
So I was about to give up. And I prayed about it. And I was like, I really feel like I'm supposed to help this person, but I don't know what to do. And I just got the nudge to try one more time.
Mhm.
So I went back to her Facebook profile. I'd sent her a message before, and
Mhm.
she had blocked me. Actually, we can have that conversation later. But I saw that she had a boyfriend attached to it, so I messaged him. I said, "Brian, look, your wife has a foreclosure sale in 2 days. She has an obscene amount of equity. Can we just have a conversation? What do you have to lose?"
Mhm.
He immediately responded, said, "I'll see what I can do." So she called me a few minutes later. She sent me a screenshot of her loan balance, and I met her that evening. The reason for the pain and why she wasn't answering, her son had died in that home,
Mhm.
and she could not bring herself to address it. It was just too painful. So we met over there. She cried. It was the first time she'd been there for quite some time. And she said, Michael, I saw all your messages, every single one. But no one else was persistent enough to keep coming after me. And you were the only one that sent me a Facebook message. And I kind of thought that was interesting. Um, so we left the house. We went and met at a McDonald's local or close by. And she said, Michael, I owe 68 on this house. I know you're not even going to pay that. Granted, this house is worth $300,000 fixed up. She's like, it would be mind blowing if you would just give me 80. That $12,000 could change my life forever. And I said, I can't do the 80. What I can do is 100. So I ended up giving her quite a bit more. It was a wonderful experience. And that's the type of investor that I see being a niche investor. Someone that, of course, we want to make money. We want to do deals. I'm a competitive person, don't get me wrong. But we want to impact these sellers in a way that it's life-changing for them. It's not just a piddly amount, $2 or $3 grand that's gone in a couple of months. It's an amount of money that can really change the trajectory of their life. And that was just a cool story that came from a Facebook message.
Yeah, it's a great story. And then video messages as well. So how are you sending video messages?
So for the longest time, I've done it through just cell phone. I have opened my big mouth enough in Kansas City to where I've had copycats implement my whole system, and it's made it a little bit harder to get a deal, and we still get plenty. But I was like, I really need to come up with something to differentiate myself. So I started just taking 30-second little videos of myself. It's kind of like you're just leaving a voicemail, I guess, and I would just say, hey, my name's Michael. I'm sure you're getting completely bombarded with messages. I get that. I truly hope you have this situation with your house, with the foreclosure sale coming up, solved. But I just wanted to introduce myself, put a face to a name, and just see if you needed anything. Something like that, and a bunch of different variations. And I would send that through just a text on my phone, and got a lot of deals that way. And the people were just like, you were the only person that sent me something that way. Now, over time, it's hard to scale that. You got 200 or 300 foreclosures in a market. You can't really just like sit around making videos. So there's different mass generation type sites that you can basically read a script in your voice, then kind of make a video like you were going to send it, and it can actually take different fields within that video. For instance, hey, Steve, your house at 123 Main Street, and it actually makes it look like I'm talking and I'm sending it. So we've implemented that. There's a couple of different sources. One's called Tavis.io. The other one is called Gan.ai. So a couple of different sources. You could check that out.
Yeah. So Devin Robinson obviously was in that presentation. I think we brought up your name in Devin's podcast. Another one was John Kleisch.
Okay.
Right. Another Phoenix guy. So we contract a property and the guy is MIA. Goes on a run from ATF.
Okay.
Right. Eventually gets caught and is locked up in federal.
Wow.
Right. And we need this guy to sign so that we can freaking buy his house. But he doesn't. We can't get him to sign the contract at title, right, to record. So along this whole time, we have a process where we just file a memorandum.
Yeah.
Right. We sign a contract, record a memorandum, sign a contract, record a memorandum. And every once in a while, I don't know why, whatever public records we use, they just change the owner from that guy, from whoever, to our company, right?
Okay.
Onward Financial Solutions. And so, but the house is still in foreclosure. So the data out there somewhere says this address is in foreclosure, but the owner is Onward Financial Solutions.
Okay.
And they skip trace that and they get me or my phone number. So one day I got a text message from John Kleisch. And it says, hey, this is John calling you about your property on, I can't remember the address anymore. And I just want to let you know you have options. You can always reach out to me. I love this message.
Yeah.
And I sent to John, hey, I'm not in foreclosure. What is this about? And he said, oh, this is something I picked up from Michael Frankie
cool.
at CG Select. So
love that.
It's like you're making an impact.
Good.
Right.
Good.
The other thing too is I love how your presentation, the part that everyone that on the senior side was raving about was like, yeah, Michael shows you how to pull the records from public records. Right. And I don't know, maybe I'm just older. right? But that's the way we used to always do it from '08 to 11. We just pulled it from the public records,
Right.
right? So I guess what was eye-opening was that everyone fishes or everyone buys fish. They go to PropStream,
Mm-hmm.
they go to Property Radar, they go to 80/20, and they buy this data from the company. I guess what they didn't know is that you can always fish for yourself
Yes.
instead of buying fish.
So I went down this path for a long time. Originally, it was just, I found foreclosure data on Zillow and I just randomly took action.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, I was like, what is the source of this?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if I'm going to do this, I guess I'd want to get there as soon as possible, not only to have me be the first person they talk to, but to give us more time before the foreclosure sale. So I just kept digging and digging and digging and found that, of course, they have to publish it on public record.
Right.
They're required to do that.
Mhm.
Here's all the notices. Great. But those are static.
Mhm.
They post the same thing over and over. It doesn't give me any information about the sale or when the sale is or if there was an adjustment or if it was canceled even.
Mhm.
So then I found, there's all these attorney sites with all kinds of different information. So then I gather that information together, train my virtual assistants, and they're on it all day long, every day to make sure that's as accurate as possible. That way my acquisition people aren't messing with stuff that the sale got canceled 2 weeks ago. So if you go to some of these other sources, the information is good, but it's dated. By the time they send it to you, if they're one of those services that give you 2 weeks or every 30 days, give you information, it's too late by then. Like in Missouri, we have a 21-day period from set of foreclosure sale to foreclosure sale. If I don't get data for 30 days, it's obsolete. It's no good.
Right.
So I've always taught that go directly to the source and make sure your information is as accurate as possible.
Yeah. So during the last crash, Doug Hopkins, whether you know,
Yes.
been on the show as well. He had a company that did that.
Did he?
Yeah, he had a company that was constantly pulling the records
That's cool.
from the trustee sites,
Mm-hmm.
and they would have the data, foreclosure date, the opening bid, the photos of the property, because they would send drivers to this.
Yes.
So here's the photos of the property. So it's like you blew everyone's minds. And again, I think maybe it's just because I'm too old, right? It's like that's how we had to do it in the last recession.
Well, it's funny. Everyone at CG Premier, they're very good at this business, but sometimes they get stuck in approaches that like TV or direct mail or the traditional ways, and they kind of forget about the bootstrapping ways to
The
get
scrappy
deals.
ways.
Whereas the select guys, they're like, they don't have as much money. They're not as established. It's like we had to be a little bit more resourceful. And that's kind of where I was at the time. But it's interesting. You talk about him having a data company because that's my biggest question now is I love what you're doing. I know you get results. I see other people around the country getting results, but I don't want to be pulling data. That's a pain. And I don't really want to hire a VA and have to do all that. So I've been building something on the side, and I'm not trying to plug it at all, but we can pull the data without humans nationwide. We can clean the data without humans. We can skip trace the data without humans. And we can get it into what we call a cabinet to where you have all the updated information. We can append that with attorney sites and various things. So
That's incredible.
I'm trying to make something that removes the barrier of entry to where if you're me in 2015, it's like, what do I do to get started in real estate? Well, you may as well go to the most motivated source that I know out there. And I provided you all the information and it's updated daily. You don't even have to think, just go act.
Yeah, that's huge. So your title then, pre-foreclosure king. What should we add here that we haven't talked about yet? Because we covered a lot of it.
What else would people want to know? I'm an open book.
Yeah, so we talked about how you got started, what you did, the action you took. We've talked about you recording it. I'm not really, and you pulled the data. I can't think of any other questions because that was supposed to be like the point of it, but I think we kind of hit all of it from all the different directions. So you've done. So it's not just pre-foreclosures though. I mean, you really focus on niche lists.
Niche list, pre-foreclosures is my baby. It's
Mhm.
it's my love. It's what I like to do, but that's only one list of 23
Mhm.
that I would attack.
Yeah.
So if let's just say you're one of the other objections I get is like, well, my state, Maryland or whatever states there are, we can't even approach people about pre-foreclosure. We can say, hey, we're in the neighborhood, we want to buy houses. Do you have, but everyone's going to have an excuse,
Right.
or my state's too competitive, or Florida, the foreclosure period's too long. It just doesn't work for me. Well, maybe it doesn't,
Mhm.
but there's other lists that you can go towards, such as probate, eviction,
Mhm.
divorce, water shut off. There's an endless amount of motivation out there.
Mhm.
And you can apply this principle that we've just talked to any other list.
Right.
So, whereas I talk about pre foreclosures all the time, so people around the country are taking action, it gets a little bit more red ocean ish.
Mhm.
Something like probate, hey, go find that probate, go check out those doors, call
Mhm.
those heirs.
Mhm.
You can do that whole same thing without as much competition. So
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it, no matter where you are. And if your state allows certain types of communication or if they have data readily available,
Mhm.
there is a list for you.
Yeah, I don't think this is a topic we've ever talked about before. So there are certain states
Hmm.
that have laws in place to, I know in their belief, protect the homeowner.
Correct.
What are those laws?
They suggest that you should not communicate anyone and come like I want to be a trusted advisor. They say someone will come to your house, they'll say they want to help you, and they're just going to steal your house out from under you.
Mhm.
So they have laws to where you can't communicate at least the first communication about, hey, I want to help you with the pre-foreclosure.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to circumvent that with different language and
Mhm.
approach it as kind of a general investor would.
Yeah. I think in Washington they call it equity stripping. I think that's
Yes.
that's the what they
Yeah.
call it there. Is that what it's called in all places?
I don't know if it's called that in all places. I'm not an expert on every law around
Mhm.
the country, but I have had people that have watched my content and said, hey, I've run into this issue. This is kind of what I'm coming up against. How
Mhm.
would you suggest I kind of get around that?
Mhm.
And it's just a simple path of approaching it in a way that you're just not talking about the foreclosure. So it's
Mm.
like I said earlier, hey, I just bought a few houses in the area. Love this street. Would you ever be interested in
Mhm.
selling the house?
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I hadn't really thought about selling the house, but I have this problem.
Mhm.
Oh, then you can have the conversation.
So I haven't dived too deep into the law. My understanding was we couldn't target the people. It wasn't the words; it was the targeting.
I have to look into that. I'm not an attorney or anything
Yeah.
like that. So I have to go back and research that a little bit.
Yeah. Again, I'm not an expert either. I've just had a couple people like, "Hey, you gotta be watch out for this." Like,
And I do specifically have people in Maryland and Washington
mm,
that are doing this.
mm,
So they haven't gotten in trouble yet, but you definitely should consult an attorney
yeah,
before you start.
it's why I love Arizona. It's this is the Wild West. What were some of your biggest victories along the way?
In terms of pre-foreclosures or business in general,
Business.
getting over that hurdle that I wasn't worthy to hire.
Mm,
It took me 5 years to get over that. And now it's like, how did I not do that sooner? And it's like everyone that's doing those tasks that I've delegated, one, they're better than me at.
mhm,
And two, they love it. And I
right.
hated it.
Mhm,
And I'm providing someone an income that's providing for their family, and there's a lot of joy in that.
mhm,
So we're at for the longest time, I was just me. Now we're 14 strong.
gotcha.
So
You're saying skills testing. What's skills testing?
so for instance, if I was going to do a sales position, we were going to do niche lists. We would go through cog test and all the other interviews. Let's say they get through those.
Mhm,
Their core value fit, you like them.
mhm,
Well, I might, for instance, say, here is a list of 15 houses in pre-foreclosure.
mhm,
I want you to go attack these different houses, give it a couple of days, see what you come up with.
mhm,
People will either say, well, I'm not doing that, or this isn't for me, I hate it, or they will go out and make action and they won't have any idea what they're doing, but they'll say, I talked to this person, they want to have a conversation. I don't know what to say next. It's like that type of go-getter
mhm.
ability is what I'm looking for.
Gotcha. I like that. So, we're talking about personality and cognitive. Did you know that we cannot discriminate off of DISC or IQ?
Did not.
Yeah. So I love the predictive index because technically it's not DISC,
Yeah.
and the cog technically not IQ.
Wasn't aware of that technicality, but I like it.
Yeah, I mean that's is basically what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just like, well, we're not really targeting pre-foreclosure. We're just buying houses nearby. Like we're entrepreneurs.
Right.
Whatever we got to do to get our message across.
The reality is, I mean, you have these different laws, and I'll abide by them. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I care about that seller and their
Mhm.
well-being a lot
Mhm.
more than some issue like that.
Right.
But
So what does your life look like now?
I'm still in the business. I love the business,
Mhm.
and I'm currently trying to grow this coaching company and figure that out.
Mhm.
It's a lot more than I expected. This data company, but I'm just trying to grow my team to where they can be leaders and they can make decisions. I think that's one of the biggest things in the last year that I've been trying to work on is
Mhm.
enabling them to make decisions on their own, to where I can come on a trip like this one and be gone for a few days, and it's not just a wildfire.
Mhm.
And I'm still figuring out the leadership side.
Yeah.
That's a whole different side, and getting a little bit better at it. But that's a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah, that's the hardest part of all the things. Marketing, you can figure out. You figure it out at a very, very high level. Sales, again, you've also figured that at a really, really high level. Leadership is the one where we all
Yeah,
it's perpetual struggle because the problem is us,
it is.
right? The problem is not a tool, it's not a KPI, it's us. We had again yesterday at CG, we did the roundtable thing, and one of the questions was like, what's the one thing you would tell your 18-year-old self? And it was like, work on yourself first,
Mm.
right? And I made the comment to him kind of jokingly, don't know how well it landed. I was like, hey, have you noticed that, all your problems have one thing in common? You.
Yeah.
I don't think he took it as well as I was hoping he would take it. I might have gotten a little too comfortable in that group.
Hey,
Um,
it's true though. I mean, I'm the bottleneck in a lot of areas in my company still.
yeah.
I'm trying to figure that out, but it's a pursuit worth fighting for. So,
Oh, 100%. This is a question. This is a challenging question. Don't be upset with me.
okay.
So you're doing real estate. You're doing a coaching uh, product in the immediate future,
Yeah.
and you're actively working on a data company. Why are you doing three different things?
Long term, I see the acquisition company that I work with as being a testing ground
Mm-hmm.
for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
What is working, what is not working,
Mm-hmm.
trying to be innovative there, and of course provide jobs for all my team members.
Yeah.
I love acquisitions. I love being in houses and having these conversations. I don't get to as much anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but I enjoy it. That's why I didn't do that company. Then people from sharing that, they said, I need to know how to do this at a higher level. I don't just want a 3-hour course. I really need to know at a deep level. So I started building this coaching company. Well, as people learned about that, they're saying the biggest issue in getting started is data.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to do it. I don't have the ability to manage this VA, and I don't know if they're even working for me the whole time. I just don't want to do any of that. So I had not planned on doing a
Mm-hmm.
data company, but I got a contact from another mastermind of a guy that came from the tech space, is
Mm-hmm.
a developer for 30 years, and he was looking to improve the real estate space.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'm going to start investing. Pre-foreclosures make sense for me to go after. I'm going to start going after that. So he started poking around this mastermind. Who's the guy for that? So I got connected with him and we talked over a period of months and
Mm-hmm.
started building this thing. And we realized it would be a possible solution.
Yeah.
We just kept digging in. It was like, this could just be a supplement
Mm-hmm.
for anyone that wants to go through my coaching company to
Yeah.
get them started and get them a better result.
Yeah. I'm only asking this just my own personal experience. Trying to do too many things. Found out that I can't do them all well.
Yes.
Yeah. So you probably already considered that, but I had to ask that question. Besides financial freedom, what else do you love about real estate?
I love the chase.
Mm-hmm.
I love that it's different every day. I love that I get to serve people. And a lot of it kind of reminds me of teaching. It's like you're in the same building every day,
Mm-hmm.
But every day is a different lesson. Every day kids have different challenges. You get to overcome those. My biggest thing with a job is not being bored and having there be a variety.
Hmm.
And I love that about real estate.
What don't you like about what we do?
I don't know if it's anything about real estate that I don't like. It's that I can't turn my brain off from it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an internal thing that I don't like. But I guess if I had to choose something, there's always a fire.
Hmm.
When you own 20, 30, 40 houses at a time,
Hmm.
there's always something going wrong. And I've kind of learned to internalize that stress and it doesn't bother me anymore. And I just make decisions. But that's the part where I'm working with my team on right now. I
Yeah.
need you to be able to make those decisions without emotion
Hmm.
and without needing me every time. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the thing we're working on at the moment.
How are you empowering them?
That's something that I could probably use your help on. Again, I'm going through leadership stuff as much as I can,
Hmm.
but just encouraging them to make the decisions and be like, "This is a decision I normally make.
Hmm.
Okay, let's go through it. I'm going to explain to you how I made this decision. If we have repair requests on a house, it comes back that a window is broken and there is plumbing that is an issue.
Hmm.
Okay, they're safety issues. Go fix it.
Right.
It's like we just go over enough things that's like I've seen that before. I'm going to
Mhm.
make the decision. If it's not a more than $1,000 decision,
Hmm.
it's less. Just do it and
Let's
make the
do it.
decision. So,
Exactly. What is your why?
everyone says their family, and that is a why
Hmm.
for me. But it goes back to what my mother instilled in me to make impact. And
Hmm.
it's like I've seen what it's like to have a job where I was never going to make it. I was just going to coast right at the
Hmm.
same level my whole life. And I opened Pandora's box. And I just want people to have that opportunity to not necessarily do the business at the level that we maybe do it, but it's like, man, what if they saw my YouTube video and it's like they were able to do 2 deals a year
Hmm.
and double their income. It's like it's that type of empowerment for someone else and them to be able to have options in their
Hmm.
life, and perhaps break some generational curses of allowing their kids to do what they wanna do. I kind of felt pushed into college and different things. I didn't wanna do that.
Hmm.
When my kids turn that age, I want them to have the ability to pursue whatever passion they want. I want other people to do that with their kids as well, so
Yeah. You and I definitely have that much in common. Um, what is your superpower?
say it's persistence.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that I'm smartest guy, the best looking guy, the best at business, any of those things. But what I do have is the ability to never give up on
Hmm.
something, even if it's dire and it's looking bad. I'm gonna keep going, and my thing's always been 1% better a day.
Hmm.
Get 37 times better over a year. Um, I just don't give up on things, and eventually, I get pretty good at it.
How would you say you maintain your emotional regulation through persistence?
That's a good question. I was actually talking with Austin in the green room over there about being in fight or flight a lot,
Hmm.
but that almost becomes normal.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't say that I've perfected all of that, but I've been able to take emotional situations and take the emotion out of it and make
Hmm.
a decision. But I wouldn't say that I'm a master at,
Yeah. Well,
dealing with
because
my emotions.
it's one of those skill sets, right? Because you need to make a sound, logical decision in an emotional state.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's a bad thing because I might have something in my life that's really emotional and I should feel something, but I don't. And then
Yeah.
I try to logic the situation
Right.
away. Um, so it's an interesting balance.
What is your biggest regret?
I have two. One is not pursuing this path sooner. I'm not
Hmm.
saying that I not go to college, but I wish I had pushed back on my folks a little bit. And it's like maybe I take a year in between high school and college to
Hmm.
pursue something. So I regret that in some way. But going to college, I met my wife. I
Yeah.
cannot argue with that path. But perhaps not testing out the entrepreneurial bug sooner.
Hmm.
I regret that a little bit. The other thing is not setting boundaries in my life sooner. with my family.
Hmm.
It's been an issue in the past where it's like, I love work. I love working. I love it. Money's fun, but at the end of the day, I just love doing this.
Hmm.
And sometimes I put them on the back burner. So in the last 6 months or a year, I've had to put some things in place
Hmm.
to where I give them more time, and not learning how to be present more is
Yeah.
probably a regret I wish I would have looked at sooner.
What are those things you've done to be more present now?
I'm still a work in progress,
Hmm.
so it's not perfect, but my wife bought this box at home for my cell phone. It's called an RO box. If you're struggling with that type of thing, it can be a good situation to where you put that in the box. It gives you stats on how long you put
Hmm.
your phone away and stuff, but still not very good about that. But
RO,
ARO.
ARO. Okay. So it's not the I'm thinking of Shark Tank back in the
Okay.
day, right? Where like what they had was like all your snacks had to be in the container that like locked itself
Oh,
after like
yes.
9 p.m. Right? And I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
God, right? If I just had, because I've got kids and there's just all this awful snacks in the pantry. If we could just have the pantry just automatically lock, right, at like 7:30,
That'd be good for me too.
it'd be great. I'd be in phenomenally better shape,
Yes.
right? The self-control disappears. About 8:30 p.m., self-control's lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what failure did you learn the most from?
Oh, what failure. I think from the beginning, I tried to learn everything on my own, and I trusted people that hadn't been to where I want to be. I put my faith in a real estate agent from the very beginning that I'd never met. I didn't know what their accolades were. And we flipped probably 6 or 8 houses and broke even. I went to a very expensive, well, I did do some mentorship, $70,000 mentorship, but didn't vet those people.
Mhm,
Um, One of the biggest failures probably is not investing in education from people that I know, like, and trust,
mhm.
that have been where I want to be.
Yeah. And what book have you gifted more than any other?
Mm, what book? I don't gift books very often, but I do share stuff from books in my
Mhm,
stories every morning.
mhm.
Mostly the Bible and but various other things. But I probably should share some books more often. But I can't say I've gifted any.
What is the most powerful verse? Your favorite verse that you like to share?
Man, anything in Proverbs or
Mhm,
wisdom related, I crave wisdom. So I read Proverbs over and over and over
mhm.
again, trying to figure out what the Lord needs me to learn to
Yeah,
be the vessel that He needs me to be.
gotcha. Think about some last thoughts. I'll leave all the listeners with. Guys, I hope you guys got a ton of value, right? I know I got a ton of value. So don't keep us a secret. We want to get this message out there. I'm trying to create 100 millionaires. Michael is on this planet, was put on this planet to create impact. Help us reach our goals. What are some last thoughts you want to leave all the listeners with?
Guys, don't try to be perfect before you take action. I got into pre-foreclosures from finding a random piece of data, and instead of thinking about it and over analyzing it, I just walked. I literally walked over to this house, knocked the house. I did not know what to say. Something just came out. I had a great conversation. I made $50,000 on the deal. Is that going to happen to everyone? Of course not. But the fact remains, if I hadn't taken action on that, I don't know if I would know about this topic as well as I do.
Hmm.
Get out there, take action on what you've learned today, what Steve teaches. You can be a millionaire within a few years, just like Steve says at the beginning of the show every time.
Yeah, perfect. If someone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, reach out to me on Instagram, Michael_Frankie. I'm pretty responsive on there. I'd love to hear your questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey,
Appreciate
thanks for
this.
having me.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys
Shout
next
out to
time.
Steve Train. Jump on the Steve Train. We real estate disruptors.